It's a Tuesday afternoon. Your phone buzzes. You see her name, your ex-wife. Your stomach drops. Years of shared history, the divorce, the silence, all rushing back in an instant. The immediate thought hits you. Does she miss me? Does she want to try again? Stop. Right there. That feeling is not intuition. It's a trap. This is not destiny, and it is not closure. It is a calculated move, driven by a psychology you are ignoring. It works the same way a fisherman uses a hook. The bait isn't there because he loves the fish. It's there because he wants to pull it back under his control. When your ex-wife reappears, the message isn't the connection. The message is the hook. And the moment you respond, you aren't rebuilding a bond. You're biting. Before you even think of typing, "Hey, how are you?" You need to understand the dark reason she is really back. Because it has nothing to do with love and everything to do with control, which starts with a powerful chemical cocktail she can no longer produce herself. That chemical cocktail is the bond you built over years, primarily oxytocin and vasopressin. In a long-term marriage, your brains literally synchronize. You became her primary source of emotional regulation and stability. When the divorce finalized, that supply was cut cold. She is now, months later, in active physiological withdrawal. The good memories she might suddenly bring up, that isn't genuine reflection, it's artificial nostalgia triggered by the chemical crash. In simpler terms, she doesn't necessarily miss you, she misses the neurological calm you represented. You are a solution to a chemical deficit. She is seeking relief, not reconciliation. By answering that text, you aren't rebuilding a marriage. You are simply providing a dose of emotional anesthetic. But this chemical dependency is often just the cover for the real reason she chose this exact moment to return. That real reason is the loss of psychological control. A marriage is a system of total information. A divorce creates an information vacuum. For months or even years, you have been silent. You've disappeared from her daily data feed. This silence is a void, and that void generates profound anxiety for her. She no longer knows your schedule, your weaknesses, or most importantly, if you are moving on and improving. That casual, just checking in on you text is rarely about care. It is a psychological probe. In simpler terms, it's an audit. She is testing to see if she still has access to your emotional bank account. We see this constantly. A client of mine was divorced for 2 years. Total silence. The week his new business became successful, his ex-wife texted him, "I had a dream about you. Are you okay?" She wasn't checking his wellness. She was checking his status. She needs to know she could still have you. And her brain will create a powerful illusion to convince her this is normal. This illusion is built on a powerful biochemical feedback loop. The moment she thinks about contacting you, her brain anticipates a reward, the relief of your attention, the validation of your reply. This anticipation alone releases dopamine, making the idea of contacting you feel good. When you respond, you complete the loop, confirming her place in your world and soothing her anxiety. This entire mechanism, however, requires one crucial ingredient: selective amnesia. Her brain must conveniently forget the reality of the marriage, the disrespect, the fights, the fundamental reasons you divorced. The reality of her decision to leave or her behavior that led to the split is too harsh. So it replaces the marriage that was with a fantasy of the marriage she wishes it had been. She isn't missing the man she ignored or devalued. She's missing a sanitized, fictional version of you who exists only to make her feel stable now. Let me simplify this. She doesn't miss you. She misses the regulation you provided. That's all this phase is. This is not a reconciliation. It is a psychological relapse. Think of it like this. The first time she reaches out, it's driven by that powerful chemical withdrawal and loss of control. It feels intense and meant to be. But if you let her back in the second time she needs contact, the magic is weaker. I had a client whose ex-wife reached out after a year, missing him terribly. He replied. 6 months later, she reached out again, but this time it was a quick check-in. The third time, she just needed advice on her taxes. Here's what that really means. The intensity of the connection degrades over time until all that's left is utility. She's not trying to rebuild a life. She's just using old infrastructure because it's convenient. This pattern, however, only functions if you participate. The moment you don't, you break the cycle and trigger a completely different strategy. It's like unplugging an old machine that still believes it's running the room. For years, she could press a button and you would respond instantly. But the moment you go silent, it's like the power goes out. And every command she tries to send returns the same message: system offline. And that's when panic begins. This strategy is the vacuum. By not responding, you break the feedback loop she relies on. You deny her the chemical relief and the psychological data she craves. This amplifies her anxiety and forces her to confront the reality of your absence. This silence is not passive. It is an active signal of high value. In most cases, this vacuum will escalate her attempts as she fights for control. But this strategy has a shelf life. The neurochemical bond that fuels this anxiety, the oxytocin and vasopressin, begins to degrade significantly after 12 to 18 months of separation. If your ex-wife reappears after this window, the motive is almost never this lingering emotional bond. The reason changes from emotional to practical. It's no longer about her needing you, it's about her needing something, which means you must learn to distinguish a genuine probe from a false alarm. So, how do you spot these false alarms? The most common is the ego test. This isn't about reconciliation, it's about validation. She sends a low-effort, innocent text, "Happy birthday," or "Heard your mom was sick," not because she genuinely cares, but because she needs to see if you will still reply. Your reply is her proof that her power over you remains intact. It's a psychological ping. In practice, this looks like the ex-wife who, for 3 years straight, sent my client a Merry Christmas text. The 1 year he finally ignored it, she sent a follow-up 2 days later. "Are you getting my messages?" It was never about Christmas. It was about confirming her access. She is checking if the door to your attention is still unlocked, just in case she needs to use it later. If this feels familiar, that's your sign it's about her ego, not about you. The second false alarm is the safety valve, also known as keeping you in orbit. This is when she uses you as an emotional backup plan. If her new life isn't going as expected, or her new partner is failing her, she returns to you, the stable, predictable option. For a temporary sense of security. She isn't trying to rebuild, she's benchmarking. She's comparing her current situation to her past, you, to see if she made the right call. This is often driven by an anxious attachment style, needing constant external validation. We saw this with a client whose ex-wife only reappeared during her breaks from her new boyfriend. She wasn't running to my client, she was running from her loneliness. You are not a person, you are a psychological safety net to make her feel less anxious about her choices. Finally, there is the chaos addiction. This is the pattern for ex-wives with a disorganized or fearful avoidant attachment. These individuals are uncomfortable with stable, calm connection. They associate the physiological arousal of a fight, the cortisol, the adrenaline, with passion. Peace feels like boredom. When she returns, she's not returning for connection. She's returning for a dramatic high. She needs the cycle of destruction and intense, short-lived reunion to feel alive. If your marriage was defined by these extreme highs and lows, her return is just an attempt to restart the drama and get her fix. In short, none of these patterns mean she wants you back. They mean she wants access back. Understanding these patterns is critical, but they are useless if you fail to recognize the one mistake you're making that validates all of them. The single greatest mistake you make is reacting from a place of scarcity. The moment her text arrives, your brain floods with what if. The fear of missing out on this one final chance for closure or reconciliation. You mistake this anxiety for opportunity. Her text creates an emotional fog, and in that fog you make impulsive, low-value decisions. You reply immediately, giving her the exact validation and control she was seeking. The only way to win this game is to not play. Your cure is tactical, not emotional. It is the 48-hour rule. When she messages you, you do nothing for 48 hours. This is not a mind game, it is a diagnostic tool. This delay allows the emotional fog to clear, allowing your rational mind to take over. It also disrupts her entire strategy. It signals that you are not on demand, forcing her to wait, often exposing her true impatience and motive. But even this tactic is useless if you can't spot the more advanced forms of manipulation she will use when this fails. When the 48-hour rule breaks her initial pattern, she will escalate. This is where advanced manipulation begins, often subtly, with ghost data. She won't contact you directly, she'll use social media. She knows you, or your mutual friends will see. She'll post a song that was yours, or a photo from a vacation you took, with a vague caption like, "Remembering what really matters." This is not a fond memory. It is a targeted broadcast. It is designed to create a sense of presence and history, to trigger your emotional fog without her having to send a single text. It is a passive-aggressive bid for control, designed to make you break the silence and ask, "Was that about me?" That question is the trap. If that fails, you must learn to recognize the emotional portfolio. A divorced man often thinks in terms of finality and closure. A manipulative ex-wife often thinks in terms of assets. You are one of those assets. She keeps you, her exes, and potential new interests in a kind of portfolio, checking on their value. This is where you are kept, as an orbiter. By reappearing, she isn't deciding to choose you. She is simply rebalancing her portfolio to ensure her emotional safety net is still there. In practice, this looks like the ex-wife who reaches out only when her new relationship is unstable. You aren't the goal, you are the hedge against her risk. She needs to know she has options, and you are her most reliable historical option. The most dangerous manipulation, however, involves leverage, and the most powerful leverage in a divorce is often the children. Be hyper-vigilant here. This is when the clean logistics of co-parenting suddenly become confusing or emotional. She forgets items at your house, requiring you to meet. She starts discussing her personal loneliness or her fears during a simple drop-off. Worse, she uses the children as messengers. "Mommy said she misses our old house." This is emotional terrorism using a proxy. She is weaponizing your fundamental love for your children to create access points to your emotional life. She knows you cannot, and will not, ignore your children. This leads directly to practical motivation. If the return happens long after the 18-month chemical window, the motive is almost always utility. Did you just sell a business? Did you get a promotion? Did her financial situation just collapse? We see this constantly. A client's ex-wife was gone for 4 years, total silence. The month he inherited his family home, she reappeared, worried about him, and remembering the good times they had in that specific house. She isn't nostalgic for the past. She's prospecting for her future. She's testing your boundaries to see if your new stability can be used to solve her current instability. This is not connection. It is a resource audit. You must also decode the rebound return. This is when her new relationship, the one she left you for or jumped into immediately after the divorce, has just failed. You are not the person she wants. You are the hospital she visits to recover. She will talk about how he wasn't like you and how she realizes now what she lost. This is incredibly seductive. But here's what that really means. She is using your validation to bridge the gap to her next partner. She is testing her investment in you. She wants to see if you will provide the emotional labor of healing her with zero commitment on her part. Bottom line, everything you've seen so far is strategy, not remorse. So how do you filter all of this? You stop listening to words and look only for data. You apply two critical tests. First, the concrete change test. Has she demonstrably changed the fundamental flaw that ended the marriage? If it was her spending, has she had a stable budget for a year? If it was her inability to hold a job, is she now employed? If the answer is no, the return is a sham. Second, the therapy test. Has she on her own, without you, been in individual therapy for at least 6 months to address her patterns? Not couples counseling, her own work. If she cannot provide evidence of this independent fundamental work, then she is not a new person. She is the same person using a new tactic, which forces you to make the final calculation. What is the true cost of letting her back in? This brings you to the final internal calculation. Before you reply, you must calculate the cost of relapse. This is not a romantic opportunity. It is an economic decision about your emotional resources. The first cost is the most immediate, the interruption of your healing. That peace you have fought for, the stability you have built in her absence, that is your most valuable asset. The moment you re-engage, you sacrifice it. You are letting the person who was the source of the chaos become the arbiter of your calm. You are agreeing to pause your own progress to investigate her lack of it. It's a bad trade. In simpler terms, you are reopening a wound just to see if it still bleeds. It will. Next, you must conduct a respect inventory. This is where you analyze the method of her return. Is she offering a full, accountable apology and a plan for change? Or is she offering breadcrumbs? Breadcrumbs are those low-effort, vague texts. I've been thinking about you, or remember that place we loved. These are not bids for connection. They are tests of your availability. You must weigh these crumbs against the disrespect of the past. Did she respect you during the divorce? Did she value you during the marriage? If her past actions were disrespectful, her current words are irrelevant. She is not offering you a new future. She is just hoping you've forgotten the past. And this is the part most people get wrong. This is where you must fight the myth of the success story, that powerful, seductive fantasy that you will be the exception. You project a future where she has changed and everything is healed. But that is not a projection. It is a daydream. A real future projection is based on data. So project 6 months forward, based on the actual data of your marriage. Are you truly building a new, healthy dynamic? Or are you just sitting in the exact same arguments, the exact same dysfunctions? Only this time, you have no one to blame but yourself for re-enlisting. She has shown you who she is for years. Believing her text over your own history is a failure of your intelligence. This is why the final calculation is a choice between scarcity and abundance. The only reason you are even considering this is the fear that she is your last, best chance at connection. That is a scarcity mindset. The abundance mentality is the clinical understanding that a healthy, stable life is preferable to a familiar, chaotic one. This requires the consistency test. If she is truly changed, she must prove it. Not with intensity, but with consistency over a long period. Her words mean nothing. Her actions, her therapy, her demonstrated changes, those are the only data that matter. This leads us to the only logical conclusion you can draw. This leads to the final, critical test. Ask yourself this one, cold, clinical question. If you met this woman today, As a complete stranger, knowing her documented history of behavior, her core patterns, and her true values, would you choose to build a life with her? If the answer is an immediate, honest no, then the only thing pulling you back is shared history. And history is a sunk cost, not a future asset. It's an anchor, not a map. The statistical reality is that the success rate for remarriage to the same person is devastatingly low. We are talking in the single digits. Less than 5% manage to build something new that lasts. The other 95% are just repeating the same dysfunctional loop, only this time with more resentment and less hope. You are not the exception, you are the rule. To bet on reconciliation is to bet against objective, painful data. Therefore, your entire definition of strength must be recalibrated. True strength is not the capacity to absorb more pain. It is not the grace to give her another chance. That is just your ego and scarcity mindset talking. True strength is the discipline to protect your peace at all costs. It is the definitive, cold, clinical no. It is the act of choosing the hard, lonely but productive work of building a new future over the convenient, familiar poison of the past. Your power is not in your reply. She is expecting your reply. Your power is in your silence. That silence is the final verdict. It is the ultimate signal of your recovery. And if you have been through this, share your story in the comments. Don't do it for validation. Do it as a warning for the man who is currently in that 48-hour fog, his finger hovering over the send button, looking for any reason to believe the illusion. Your data is his defense. If you want more content that protects men from these traps, don't disappear. Stay here.